It's an important historical weekend in Memphis, the 150th anniversary of the sinking of the steamboat Sultana. And Jimmy Ogle is leading one of his free tours along the Memphis riverfront.
And what I like to say is no city in America tells a story of American history better than Memphis, Tennessee.
When you look at the early Native Americans and European explorers and American settlers to the 20th century entrepreneurs, from Civil War to civil rights, music to medicine, transportation, distribution, all the first of Memphis. I got 20 hours in my head. There's about 400 good years of Memphis history. And usually I get about 20 minutes to talk about it, so I talk real fast. So what I try to do is what I call a Cliff Notes version.
The cobblestone started being laid in 1852, 19 different work sessions over a 40-year period of time. There's over 1 million cobblestones left in here. Right now you see about 1/3 of the cobblestones.
1 million cobblestones? I've lived in Memphis most of my life, and I never knew that. Plus, Jimmy says it's the largest original cobblestone wharf left in America. But that's the amazing thing about Jimmy Ogle. He loves Memphis, loves history, and loves telling everyone about it.
I'm a lifelong Memphian, born in Baptist Hospital on November the 14th, 1952, and I looked in the paper a couple years ago for the November 15th edition of 1952, and it just says, "A boy born to Dr. and Mrs. Elsie Ogle, 1747 Peabody Avenue." So I didn't have a name when I was born.
Speaking of interesting facts, Jimmy Ogle doesn't have a PhD in history.
I majored in education. I had a BS in education. I got a Parks and Recreation emphasis. I had one history class in my life by Dr. Crawford, University of, who's still there, Dr. Charles Crawford.
Jimmy says he's learned Memphis history through osmosis, absorbing the knowledge through his experiences.
Yeah, and it got into me by osmosis, by wandering around the city and exploring and driving and going here and there in places I shouldn't go, and old buildings that had been closed down, and are falling down.
And between 1880 and 1920, over 70% of the cotton crop in America was within 200 miles of Memphis. So we cleared out all these hardwoods, started planting cotton. We're the cotton capital of the world. To do all that, we're the mule capital of the world. Again, right here in Memphis. Front Street up there, 30 feet higher, never flooded. That's where Cotton Row was. So that's where they classed all the cotton. They'd bring the cotton up off the boats up here, or bring it back down. And the mules couldn't take it straight up, it was too steep, so they had to zigzag back and forth. That's why these streets are wider here coming down to the cobblestones. Usually they come all the way down.
Because of his wealth of knowledge and his love of history, Jimmy was recently named the official historian of Shelby County.
We had two historians of Shelby County, Ellen Davis Rogers and then Ed Williams. I'm the third. I got one history class in my life, hadn't written a book. I don't care to write a book. I tell people, if I write a book, it's gonna be one long run-on sentence, And I don't have time to do that. I'd rather just talk.
Watching Jimmy rattle off one historical fact after another, you begin to wonder how he's able to keep 20 hours of Memphis history in his head.
When you get in your car, you probably have a CD, and you put it in that slot, and you sing along with that CD, and that's about an hour of information. You got those things. Or when a song comes on the radio, you know the words. You probably know the words to 40 Beatles songs right now that you grew up with, or Elvis or whatever. The capacity is there. I just repeat myself all the time. It's just Memphis. You could go right now and add up the number of songs. That's probably 10 hours of information. Exact lyrics, exact words. That's all it is. You have that capacity. Like I say, I'm just flipping PowerPoints in my head.
On June 6, 1862, the largest inland naval battle in the history of the world occurred right there, about where Mud Island is, between the Union fleet and the Confederate fleet. The Union fleet had 18 gunboats and 80 guns. The Confederate fleet had 8 gunboats and 18 guns coming down river. They were ironclad boats. The Confederate boats were cotton-clad boats. So it was a real mismatch. The citizens came out and sat on the bluffs up here and watched it like it was an NFL football game, because they were shooting each other in the river, not at the land. Memphis never had any land battles, never was destroyed at all by fighting. Memphis was so the battle lasted 90 minutes, and we were in northern town for the last 3 years of the war.
This year, Jimmy will be giving 200 history lectures at places like schools and senior centers, and 50 walking history tours in downtown Memphis this spring and fall. And they're all free.
And it really culminates on Saturday, October 10th, when I'm going to do, on the 10th minute of the 10th hour of the 10th day of the 10th month, I'm going to do a 10-hour tour in downtown Memphis.
On this Sunday afternoon, Jimmy ends his walking tour at the historical marker commemorating the tragedy of the Sultana, a steamboat carrying over 2,300 people, most of them Union prisoners of war, returning home. 7 miles upriver from Memphis, where boilers exploded.
Over 1,700 people lost their life. It's the largest maritime disaster in the history of our country. The Titanic loss of life was 1,500 comparatively. And you know a lot more about the Titanic than you do about the Sultana. Bodies flowed by Memphis for days up until May. They said bodies were landing on the cobblestones down here.
While we had a microphone on Jimmy, I thought it would be a good time to get some fast facts about the history of Memphis.
We call it the Bluff City for several reasons. One, the co-founders never lived here. They all lived in the Nashville area. This was a pure business venture for them. And Shelby, who wasn't a Memphian, who wasn't a Tennessean, he was the governor of Kentucky. We named our county because of his efforts there. All of West Tennessee for the first 22 years we were a state wasn't even known by the state of Tennessee. It's owned by the Chickasaw Nation. We bought it for 3 or 4.5 cents an acre. Our streets are animal paths. Poplar's an old animal path because of the high ridge that they walked. Then the Native Americans walked it, then the European explorers walked it, then American settlers, then the wagon trains, and we paid poplar. We're number 6 on the National Register of Historic Places for listings in the country, behind Washington, Philadelphia, Baltimore, New York City, and New Orleans. We have over 11,000 properties listed here. 2 Memphians ever on the cover of Time magazine is Boss Crump and Kimmons Wilson. No Fred Smith, no Elvis. From the early Native Americans and European explorers to the 20th century entrepreneurs we've had here, from Civil War to civil rights, music to medicine, the whole deal. We tell it better than anybody. I'm 62 years old. I have the energy of a 16-year-old most of the time, and the curiosity of a 6-year-old, and some of the brains of a 2-year-old sometimes, and I'm just going to do this, and do it. And I've learned a lot from mistakes, but I've had a lot of great experiences here. I'm the luckiest Memphian there is. The Mississippi River here drains 41% of continental North America.